Well, if you've been sitting there, will it, won't it, should it, shouldn't it, sitting, going around in circles in your own mind about Boris Johnson's honours list? Well, we've got the answers now, haven't we? Yes, he has got one. Yes, it is going to be honoured. I think there's about 38 people on there. And there's been quite a lot of controversy around it, so it has, not least because Nadine Dorries, there was lots of conversations about whether or not she should be on there, whether or not she would be in the House of Lords, and should she have been. Anyway, all of that was to no avail because she wasn't even on the list. She stepped down with immediate effect, so she did about an hour or so before the list came out, which I found absolutely fascinating. Apparently, there's been no kind of interference from Rishi Sunak when it comes to who is on the list and who isn't. Emma, your thoughts?
I think I know that there was some doubt about whether Boris Johnson should even be allowed to have an honours list. I think it would have been absurd if he'd been denied it, as all Prime Ministers are able to create an honours list like this. I thought it was very interesting with Nadine Dorries because, as it seemed on many previous occasions, she seems to very much be playing her own game. Nadine Dorries is up to Nadine Dorries' business, and so her decision to resign, essentially, so she could get the peerage is what it looks like, and therefore triggering a by-election and throwing more chaos in the direction of Rishi Sunak.
So you think she resigned because she thought she was in line for a peerage?
That's how it looks. I mean, I can't be totally sure of that.
It looks completely the opposite to me. It looks like, to me, it was apparent that she suddenly wasn't going to be on that list for whatever reason. And this is my idea. I'm not stating any facts. I'm just giving my opinion. To me, it looks like she's chucked her kind of toys out of the pram, gone in a bit of a mood, and kind of said, right, I'll show him. I will get out of the way, trigger a by-election, and cause ructions for Sunak.
I think, she was a Boris Johnson loyalist. And she's always been very outspoken about that. And I think the fact that there was a question mark over whether a sitting MP could get a peerage, I think her decision was probably predicated on her trying to maximise her chances of getting that peerage. The reason that she gave for this, when on her statement that she released on Twitter, she said that she believes it was time to hand over the reins of her constituency to a younger MP. Nadine Dorries is only 66 years old.
Yeah, but then she hastily edited. I might get these tweets up on the screen if I can, because you're quite right, that was the original thing that she wrote on Twitter, the statement where she said she was stepping down with immediate effects, and she did say it's now time. The final sentence of the original tweet that she put out there was it was time now for someone younger to take the reins. Anyway, she hastily amended that about 5 minutes or so later, and you will see, if you've got eagle eyes, everyone, you'll see that the bottom line, if I could just get that second one up, it's basically amended. We don't have it. OK, we don't have it, but I don't know why we don't have it, but I shall tell you what it says anyway. The last line where she said it's now time for someone younger to take the reins, she basically took the younger bit out and she said it was time for someone else, essentially, to take those reins. I thought that was really interesting. I'm a little bit of a armchair detective, me. I sit there, Paul, and I think, what's going on? Why have you amended that tweet? What was the younger thing? Where was that coming from? Anyway, do you reckon she should have been on that list or not?
Not particularly. I'm no great fan of hers, but I do love a bit of bloodletting in the Tory party. I think it's fantastic, isn't it? Just a year out from an election, and you know they're involved in this bitter infighting. And I think probably it's an act of revenge. I think that number 10 overruling her as a choice. Her and Alok Sharma, and coming up with the excuse that no sitting MPs will be entitled to it. I think, as you said, Michelle, she's thrown her toys out of the pram. Whether or not there was any collusion with Boris Johnson, who knows? We couldn't possibly speculate, could we? But it's pretty clear that she's decided to throw that hand grenade in. And in some respects, this is going to be interesting because she's got a thumping great majority in mid-Bedfordshire, of 24,000, I think, the majority.
Yeah.
Labour are currently the second party in that constituency and have been for the last few elections. Now, it's a potential banana skin, I think, for both main parties, actually, because if the Tories don't hold on to it or only just scrape through, not going to look good for Sunak, just a year, possibly less than a year out from an election. But at the same time, people will be looking at the Labour Party and saying, look, OK, you're never going to win mid-Bedfordshire, but we want to see a sizable swing. Labour voters will be expecting a sizable swing. You think of the lead up to 97 when Blair was in charge of the Labour Party. They were winning between 20 and 30% swings in places where they hadn't won previously. So unless the Labour Party posts something along those lines in terms of the swing, then the danger is the Tories hold on to it, and then the focus is back on Labour. Look, there was a by-election here and you did rubbish. So it's a bit of a high-risk strategy for Dorries in terms of achieving what she wants to achieve.
Tiverton and Honiton, if you recall last year, the guy who I keep calling Tractor Boy, and I must stop calling him that and give him his actual title, Neil Parish. You'll remember him because he was apparently accused of watching adult material, I'll say it softly, shall I, it's tea time, in Parliament, he reckons, if my memory serves me right, he was just looking at tractors. Anyway, I shall suspend judgment on that. Anyway, my point is on that one, he had a similar-ish majority there or thereabouts, I think give or take a couple of thousand, whatever, but it was 20-odd. And what happened was the Lib Dems got in, and many people were saying that that was the result of tactical voting, and people were just desperate to, anyone other than a Tory in that seat. So it'd be interesting how tactical voting plays a part in this by-election as well.
Yeah, I mean, one or two people have already suggested there might be some sort of pact between Labour and the Lib Dems. I don't see that happening, actually. I don't think... No, I don't think... If you're serious, as the Labour Party should be, about forming the next government, and we're possibly just a year out from an election, I think it would send the worst possible signal that you're not confident about doing well, and that, therefore, you're going to have to pool your resources and enter into a pact with another party. I think the public would see it as opportunistic. I think they would see it as cynical. I think they would feel that the Labour Party wasn't brave enough to stand on its own platform. And I think Starmer himself will come under huge pressure not to do that. So you'll get your kind of usual hyper-progressives on the left who say, we should enter into a pact with the Labour and the Lib Dems. But I don't think it'll happen.
Is there anyone out there watching or listening? Are you in Nadine Dorries' constituency? What do you make to it? Because you might be familiar with the fact that I think it was about 5 hours prior to her resignation on Twitter, she literally went on national television and she said she wouldn't do anything to trigger a by-election. That's literally what she said about 5 hours prior to then putting it on Twitter that she was going. When she was asked about that in a subsequent interview, she said it wouldn't really come as any surprise to anyone in her constituency because she'd already said she wouldn't stand the next election anyway. So apparently you were expecting her to go. But I wonder, if you are in that seat, how do you feel today? Do you feel a little bit let down or what? Do you think good riddance? Do you think it's the wrong decision? Emma, what do you think will happen in that by-election?
Goodness, I mean, she's got a large majority, but I think that, as we saw with the previous by-elections, it's very likely that they're going to take a dramatic hit. And even the fact that Nadine Dorries would resign in this way, it puts forward, I think, for the people who are in charge of the comms and PR of the Conservative Party will probably be thinking about the chaos that this portrays to the British public. And so I think that will come into people's minds when they're deciding how they're going to vote. So I, for example, I wouldn't call myself party political or tribal in that sense, but I've only ever voted for the Conservative Party. Obviously, I'm not in Nadine Dorries'...
How can you say you're not party political then, if you've only ever voted for one particular party?
Because I would never... I would never exclude the possibility of voting.
You're open-minded.
I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded. I wouldn't describe myself as a Tory. I describe myself as a Conservative. And so, I am feeling reservations about the direction of the Conservative Party currently. And so I think there will be many people who are looking at the chaos in the party. They're looking at, this speech that Rishi Sunak has just given where he's talking about the North and looking back over the last 13 years of government and thinking we haven't gotten any of the things really that we were promised by this party.